Frank Partnoy, why should I wait to make a decision? I thought I'm supposed to make them in the blink of an eye.
Psychologists and economists and neuroscientists have discovered, particularly in recent years, that we often make better decisions when we take a little bit more time. We've learned a lot about how we make decisions and what we decide, why we make decisions. There hasn't been a lot of focus on when, and the recent focus on when has suggested that we're better off pausing.
So are you giving me license to procrastinate?
In a way I am. I'm an inveterate procrastinator. I think procrastination is sort of a universal human condition. We always have more stuff to do than we can possibly get done. And so the question is not whether we're going to procrastinate. We are going to procrastinate. It's what we're putting off. It's figuring out priorities. And so that's one of the things I wanted to do, was try to help people understand how to grab delay, how to grab time as a weapon rather than being inundated with time pressure.
And as weight relates to the stock market, are you counseling the old buy and hold strategy of Warren Buffett and Jack Bogle, as opposed to people who say, I can outtrade the market?
Certainly one aspect of it is the buy and hold. Is if you're the type of investor who has a long-term time horizon, if you're investing for your pension or for your children's college, if the relevant time horizon is 10 years, then a buy and hold strategy fits that. But really the message of wait is that you first need to figure out what your relevant time horizon is. If you're an active trader, it might be a day. If you're focused on quarterly returns or annual returns, it might be a little bit longer. If you're an average individual investor, you're thinking about the much longer term. So the idea is to first figure out what time frame you're living in, and then within that, yes, to procrastinate, to wait until the last possible minute so you aren't too active. We're hardwired to be very active, and so the idea is to push back against that hardwiring to make us better off.
And what about the whole idea of high-speed trading, letting computers make the decision for you? Does this also apply to that?
It does. One of the fascinating things I found about high-frequency trading from interviewing a lot of people was that they aren't always the quickest. Sometimes they want to implement delays as part of their strategies. I talked to a number of high-frequency traders who actually like to take their time. There are battles between the algorithms, and often the algorithms don't want to be the first algorithms. They want to procrastinate also. They're procrastinating at the speed of light. They're waiting only a few milliseconds, but the way the algorithmic wargaming world works now, there are a lot of strategies that sort of dip their toe into the water, that might have a few buys early, a few sells very early on, but then 10 milliseconds later or 50 milliseconds later really implement the true core of the strategy. And because there are so many computers battling with each other, it often is the best strategy to figure out an optimal amount of delay. I talked to one high-frequency trading firm that started off in Burbank, California, and it was taking 65 milliseconds for them to execute their strategy. They moved from Burbank to Manhattan to try to get faster, and they got worse. And they found that their optimal strategy was actually to slow their computers down from 35 milliseconds to 65 milliseconds, because that was the right time frame for them. So really the book is about finding your ideal time frame, and it applies in our conscious lives, but it also applies in our pre-conscious millisecond long lives. The same thing that professional athletes do in delaying hitting a baseball or hitting a tennis serve, high-frequency trading firms do in delaying trades by milliseconds.
But if you wait too long to make that tennis serve or swing that baseball bat, you could miss the ball. So what about the whole idea of first mover advantage? If you wait too long, will you lose that first mover advantage? If you snooze, will you lose?
That's absolutely right. So there's an art and a science to delay, and you can't wait. If the ball's gone by, you're too late. But although there's a first mover advantage in some areas, there also is a lot of research that suggests that there's also a second mover advantage. That sometimes if it's a dangerous environment and the cat is going to get the first mouse, then the second mouse is the one that gets the cheese. And so the art is figuring out whether you're in an environment where it pays to be first, and the first mover advantage outweighs that, or if you're in an environment where the first mover is going to get eaten alive and you're better off delaying, sort of letting the turf get settled and then stepping in a little bit later. Many of the great innovations of the last decade have been innovations that took years. I mean, Facebook and Apple are the products that came out of those companies are products that were developed over a long period of time. And so I end the book with talking about long-term decision making and how companies that have the eye on the long-term ball are able to be much more successful.